In this video, a retired Canadian Brigadier General with a 75-year-old toy soldier collection lists his top model soldier makers. My name is Mark Silverthorn, and I'm the social media chairman for the Ontario Model Soldier Society. Our topic today is toy soldier makers, more specifically, favorite toy soldier makers. And we have a very special guest today, retired Canadian Brigadier General Darrell. He has been collecting model soldiers for more than 75 years. Today, General Dean is going to share with us his favorite toy soldier makers. As a general rule, are the toy soldier makers that you are going to refer to in this video still carrying on business in 2023?
I think I dealt with about 31 different producers. Now, as I started to do some investigation for you on how these folks were producing today, there are still a number. There are a number that are not producing, and they're not producing because they have passed away.
So, General, when you decide what your favorite toy makers are, what are some of the things that you're looking for when you make that decision?
Well, there's a number of things. One, as I mentioned, going back to my figures in the Arabian display, I had never seen those figures before until I went to the Toy Soldier show in Chicago. And I looked at, I saw the Somerset figures. My wife actually saw them before I did. And he had quite a display of them. Only one or two were painted. The rest were unpainted. But he would paint them whatever you would like them to be. Anyway, I got one of his catalogs and then decided that, okay, these figures are lovely. I would like to have the display of Lawrence of Arabia. And as I say, they're a little pricey, but on the other hand, they're beautifully done. They're beautifully sculpted, and the painting is by far some of the best I've seen on figures. Other figures that I like, other makers that I like, as you know, I've got an eclectic bunch of them. I was looking for things like action figures, those fitting into the dioramas that I was developing. I was looking for regiments, and you know, some companies they will produce large numbers of figures, but they will only do a small number of a particular regiment, and they may not be in the poses that you want them to be in. So that was another method that I used to purchase figures. I wasn't concerned about having all one maker if these makers were making something that were common to what I was looking for, like the Spanish Civil War or Rorke's Drift, I would use those other makers as well. And you know, it's finding what you're looking for, and if you want more of one regiment but in different poses, you may have to go to another maker. So that was how I did it. It was a different way of collecting them when I was young, which was, as I say, going down into Miller and Co. and a nice lady there would order whatever I wanted. But what I wanted then was kind of all marching figures, or that seemed to be what this particular store had. Whereas when I got older, I realized and even more so when the internet came on, the number of figures all over the place, all over the world, um, would allow you to build your dioramas um, through the use of many different types of producers of toy soldiers.
Now, General, you've provided me with some video clips from your collection. If I were to refer to a particular video clip, would you be able to comment on the makers that were in that particular video?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to start with the sort of the oldest chronologically, and we're going to move forward in time to the more recent video clips. So the first one is going to be the Battle of Waterloo.
Yes, there is where we get into a lot of tradition figures. My display is mainly tradition figures. Um, they had all sorts of both French and English figures that they had produced. There are a number of other makers that I have included in that display. They're not there in large numbers, but they helped with different portions, different regiments, and that's the thing you have to look for when you're doing diorama displays. Um, I bought, and they are in that display, um, figures from South America, and they Beau Geste. They make very beautiful figures. And I had been in Argentina and went to the home of Beau Geste, and they had some lovely French soldiers of that particular period.
Okay, so the next video clip we're going to refer to is Opium Wars in China.
A fascinating period in time as France and Britain and the United States and Russia and a number of other countries were making their way into China, mainly along the coast of China. Those figures, the Opium War figures, are all done by Trophy Miniatures. The fellow that owned Trophy Miniatures, who I went and visited and bought those figures from him, he has passed away. And Trophy Miniatures I now see being sold in auctions. I see some dealers that seem to have a large amount of Trophy Miniatures, but I don't believe Trophy is producing anymore.
The next video clip you've shared with us is the Anglo-Zulu War in South Africa.
Right. An interesting war that took place, and I really enjoyed putting my diorama together. The figures for Rourke's Drift were a mixture of tradition and I'm thinking tradition is probably the main group in there, and a number of other makers, some British figures.
So the next video clip we're going to refer to is the Modest War in Sudan.
Another interesting series of actions that took place there. The British had gone into Sudan to try and bring the Mahdists under control. It wasn't successful. They ended up leaving Sudan. But in that particular display, you will see the Mahdists, and they are the ones in the long flowing robes with the different colors painted on them. But some interesting figures in there. Again, a mix of different figures. Tradition of London plays a big role. There are a number of other smaller makers, some of them not producing figures anymore.
So, General, the next clip we're going to ask you to comment on is Lawrence of Arabia in the Middle East.
That's an interesting bunch of figures down in there. I've got some Turks, compliments of king and country, um, and a large group of T.E. Lawrence's Arab army that he put together as they moved from across the various countries, from Saudi Arabia up through um, Syria and up into chasing the Turks out of that particular area. One of the makers of the figures, of the Arab figures in there, is a firm called Somerset. It's a one-man operation. Ron Lay is the maker's name. And he does tremendous figures. They're very well done. The painting is just excellent.
General, the next clip we're going to ask you to comment on is the Spanish Civil War.
I fell in love with the Spanish Civil War because, as you know, I spent 12 years in Germany. Spain was a popular place to go on holidays. They were produced mainly by Alimer, and so I would go when I wasn't at the beach. I would go hunting for choice.
Okay, so the next clip we'd ask you to comment on is from World War One.
That clip, if I remember correctly, was the one with the trench system with the fighting going on in it and the tank.
Yes, moving up the line.
Moving up the line, that's correct. Those are all lineal and elastoline figures, British and German. There is a tank in there, which is named Buttercup. It's written on the side. The maker of the tank was a company called Hot Engines and Castor Oil in England. They are still producing vehicles. He asked me what the name of my tank was when I was serving in the regular force, and I told him, and he wrote it on the back of that tank. So that's why it's called. The figures that are in there, as I say, are both elastoline and lineal figures. The British figures that were made, you'll notice have pack systems like the Germans had. You'll see British soldiers throwing potato masher hand grenades. That's because when the two companies made these figures, they were based on a German figure. So they didn't bother to change the weapons or the hand grenades or the packs. And you'll see British soldiers with cylindrical gas masks on their back. Well, we never had cylindrical gas mask carriers that I was aware of, but they had just utilized the German figure.